We are back and ready to continue our day over here in the Hearthstone Grandmasters in the European region. I'm Raven, joining me is Sottle, and we have our 2 matches left of the day. We've got SilverName versus Bunnyhoppor coming up next, though. Looking forward to this one, although this one might get a little bit spicy again, as we do have some Priest players, Sottle.
We do, yeah. We have some Priest players in a large amount of our matchups throughout the weekend, Raven, but I'm personally here for it because Mirror accepted. I kind of like a lot of the Priest matchups. I do think it's a pretty interesting deck. It's certainly a fun deck if you are the person inflicting the misery, but it's a pretty miserable deck if you're on the other side of it, having all of your cards used against to maximum effect. But you know, I'm kind of Team Priest on this one, so I'm looking forward to it. And it's something at least a little bit different from what we've been seeing for the last couple of weeks, which I think is something that Grandmasters as a whole has done pretty well this year, is, you know, broken it up from week to week where things have, you know, changed dramatically. Part of that is just in the structure of the tournament itself by the esports team, and then some of that is, you know, shouts to the balance team and the design team in terms of keeping things fresh with frequent balance patches as well. So I like to see things evolve week on week, and here we are again in a much more control-heavy meta and a few mid-rangey anti-control decks in terms of this Highlander Hunter that you see from SilverName coming up to counter it.
Yeah, along with that Priest and Demon Hunter is what SilverName has to play around with in this series, but also SilverName is playing around with his life in Grandmasters, honestly, as he is, although in Division A, currently sitting at the bottom with a 0-3 record, so there's a chance that if this continues, he could be up for relegation. His opponent, however, Bunnyhoppor with the Warrior Open, the Galakron Secret Rogue, and of course the Priest. So when I mentioned we've got some players playing Priest, the emphasis was definitely the plural player, as both players are going to be bringing it. It's not going to be banned out, so there is a chance we get the Priest mirror, which gets awfully tricky and complicated. But for now, maybe to SilverName's delight, the first game against Priest is going to be with SilverName on his Hunter. And again, we did just come off the back of this matchup, but very, very good matchup for the Hunter, and one of the few matchups, I think, at least right now, that Priest does actually struggle with.
SilverName, though, without the most aggressive curve in the opening here. I think there's some argument even as to whether Phase Stalker is kind of what you're looking for in the matchup, whether you should go for more aggressively statted minions to really ramp up pressure in the early game. Fairy Dragon, Evasive Feywing, stuff like that.
Yeah, and
does hold on to it, though.
And SilverName is not running the Nagrand Slam in this list either, so he doesn't have that. Just, you know,
I love it. Just every single match, just instant check for Nagrand Slam. It's just the first thing he does every single game.
It's important, all right? Okay, it's important for 2 reasons. One, it's my favorite card, this expansion. 2, I think it is actually important in this matchup. It's a 1 card, like, do a good thing. And the matchup often goes to 10 mana here for Hunter. So I do think it's important. SilverName not running it, he's running some of that secret package. Although maybe frustratingly in this specific matchup, a freezing trap and a snake trap feels like they do almost nothing. For SilverName against Priest. Maybe that's just my opinion. I'm not really liking traps right now, but what do you think about the package, Sol?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think there's a lot more aggressive cards that you could be looking for in this matchup in particular. SilverName did find Stormhammer, which is potentially pretty key in the matchup in general, because most lists, just checking Bunnies in particular, and no, he is not playing an Acidic Swamp Ooze, so that card can just hard carry, just represent way too much damage early on. So I perhaps would have mulliganed a little bit more aggressively from SilverName's side, but I did like Bunnyhoppor's mulligan. He held on to Mind Flayer cards, he tossed everything else. I think Fate Weaver was probably ambitious with, I believe, 0 invokes in his opening mulligan. He did mulligan into Disciple and Time Rip, but I don't think he had any invoke options early on. Maybe he had a Shield of Galakron, but still, it's a little bit slow alongside a Fate Weaver keep.
And even now, the Bunnyhoppor, not known, fastest player in the West, but the tough choices do start to stack up already right now. Even just using the 2-drop, it is potentially worthwhile. Just having a minion on board to start chipping away at anything SilverName might play, or at least be a target for a potential Apotheosis draw, is something to consider. He is going to go for the Coin to Mind and play extra card, which is going to give him not only like the 3-3, but also the 2-3 afterwards when he dies. So he's going for just trying to stick minions in this early game.
Yeah, this minion, Mindflayer Kaj, is so key in a lot of your worst matchups, I'd say. I mean, it's just an incredibly good card overall, but in a lot of your bad matchups, you get forced off the board so effectively by decks that are, more mid-rangey and more aggressive than you are, that, you're scrambling to land Apotheosis a lot of the time to be able to stabilize and get yourself into a position where your good cards are playable in the late game, but you just never get minions to stick, whereas Mindflayer Kaj, at least, is an incredibly frustrating minion to deal with, just in terms of contesting early boards and in terms of your opponent full removing your board so you're not able to land Apotheosis. SilverName here, just hero power, freezing trap, has the snake trap in hand, so that was going to be guaranteed for him, so knows he has a nice solution to this.
Does he do it, Sol? Does he do it? Bunnyhoppor has access to Shadow Madness, and he knows that there's on his view, a 50-50 chance that it's freezing trap. And if it is, he does not want this card freezing because it becomes significantly worse, especially versus Hunter, after the freezing trap. So maybe it's just worth it.
I'm curious whether, Bunnyhoppor weirdly could have got information from SilverName's sequencing that turn, because SilverName killed the 1-2 first and then pressed the button. It's almost as if he knew he was going to get freezing trap that turn. You see what I'm saying?
I do. I don't know if that would give you information. Maybe that's just sequencing 101, right? Don't need to do the hero power before or after, so the trades happen
sequencing
first? I don't know.
No. Sequencing 101 would tell you to do the random thing first. So you gain information, and then you plan out the rest of your turn. Obviously, it wouldn't have had a big impact because there's very limited branching paths when you have that little mana and so few cards in hand. If you want to use the sequencing 101 argument, then it was wrong.
Or maybe if he did it first and then traded, he definitely tells him it's freezing.
Sure, that's fair. I can buy that.
Maybe it's sequencing 102.
Yeah, no. We're getting into the advanced classes now. I like it.
I'm ready.
I like it.
And this is honestly, for me, where it starts to get a little bit weird, right? Bunnyhoppor tried to play around freezing trap. He played an additional minion. It was cleared off. Now this card is isolated once again. For want of wasting time and this 3-3 just never attacking, is it just worth to just Shadow Madness and get this over with? I guess not. Your Bunnyhoppor is just going to rip the Highlander cards out of nowhere, of course. But you see my point, right? The more Bunnyhoppor plays around this freezing, the more, for me, it just feels like you just commit the Shadow Madness to it.
Your wish is my suggestion.
I think Bunnyhopper's okay with the status quo for now. Just, SilverName just forcing to jam into these minions all the time. He does need to have the dragons in order to go Infinite Stormhammer here, and it's a lot of damage that's not going to Bunny's face.
I guess, though, even if the 2-1 went in and he played a minion, still kind of the same problem. Also, obviously not as good for SilverName if he can't swing a weapon, but it's still, this 3-3 is still just sitting there.
I think importantly now, if by Bunnyhoppor waiting, he's created a scenario where Shadow Madness is just kind of good either way. So now if he, on this board state, for example, if he Shadow Madness is here and it's Freezing Trap, okay, he's dealt with the Freezing Trap and now his minion actually gets to play. Cool. If it's Snake Trap, well, he still gets to kill the 5/5 by using the Shadow Madness in this scenario. So I think, by waiting and waiting and waiting, he's finding scenarios where the Shadow Madness is just kind of getting better, regardless of what Secret is.
Oh, he could just use Faceless now to clean up this completely and hold off on the and keep the Freezing Trap active.
Well, that's the good one.
And I am mad. Oh, no, he can't. Oof.
What's happening?
I'm wondering how he deals, or if he deals with this Mind Flayer right now. Because he has options, right? Because he has Zixol, the weapon, and the 2-1 that can attack. He can clear it all off if he wants. He would commit a lot. But mainly, I'm just wondering how heavily SilverName's worried about this Kaj, if at all, or if he just wants to keep just jamming plays. He plays the secret. He gives Bunnyhoppor the full information now. Well, 2 out of 2 total secrets he plays are active. So I also think that SilverName didn't hero power again, right? So it's not as if Bunnyhoppor knew that there was a secret in hand because he hero powered and didn't play another secret. I think that was actually the first time he gets the knowledge. So he could actually play Fate Weaver and then just Shadow Madness the poison into the Freezing Trap base. Just ignore the 2-1 now that it is purely just a 2-1. He ends the turn with the 3-3 going face, the value card in hand, although a bit clunky, and a 3-6 though seems like a pretty solid turn, honestly.
Yep, I like it.
Quickly.
I don't think he needs to prot the snakes here. I don't think leaving the 2-1 on board is a huge punish if he doesn't. Mainly because Bunnyhoppor doesn't exactly... He's not like committed a ton of stuff to the board that he needs to stick, right? If SilverName puts resources into killing this Fate Weaver or the Kaj and then the 2-3 afterwards, then great. I think that's a win for Bunnyhoppor actually, if anything else.
Yeah, agreed. Like that play a lot. Snake Trap is going to need to be dealt with at some point. Unless Bunnyhoppor feels like he can just outright race, but that honestly sounds pretty unlikely. Pretty unlikely.
Maybe not. He has Murozond next turn.
He does. Yeah, no, that's fair.
And
again, I kind of made this point at the start of the show that like a lot of the Hunter's cards do get value out of battle cries, more so than just like straight up stats. So it's a little asymmetrical when you Murozond in this matchup.
Of course, Bran, the nightmare to go into Murozond because it doesn't do anything for the priest. But even Rot Nest, it's still an 8-8 and a 6-5, even if you didn't get the battle cry full effect, right? It's still just, and it's whatever close to whatever the Hunter did, plus an 8-8, which the Hunter just doesn't run answers to 8-8s on the board, right? Not generally, anyway.
You'll find me whatever the action is.
There's the bad news here for Bunnyhoppor. That was probably just the one card he did not want to see this turn. I think almost anything else he would have dealt with fairly comfortably.
Right. Particularly since this was his one question mark turn.
Yeah.
Because if, the big push comes next turn from SilverName, Bunny has the discounted Plague of Death in hand just to say goodbye to all of this stuff.
No real time or room to play the Kronks either. To set up for Galakrond next turn.
Right.
So... fun. Does it have to be Shield of Galakrond plus the Ultira? Buff its health, and then... Oh, that's enough with a heal.
Ugh. Hate it.
That sound is a correct response, Subtle, but sometimes you have to do the bad things.
Quickly.
Yeah.
That's a decent chunk of minions on the board, but he's going to go with Vision first. Oof.
Yeah, I was thinking from his perspective, you could be thought stealing into Rot Nest Drake there, and then maybe that gives you some kind of out.
That's true.
Obviously, we can see that the Rot Nest Drake is in hand, so he was never going to get it. I'm trying to think of other outs off the thought steal, but I don't think there was too many.
I think that was my issue.
Was too expensive.
I think that was why I generally went for the heal instead, because there isn't that much to do with the Thought Steal from Hunter. The Faceless Corruptor punching through the 4-6, I believe. 13 damage going up there, and SilverName gets the win with the Hunter over the Priest. So far, Hunter seems to be doing its job in this matchup, Subtle, as expected.
It does, yeah. This matchup is just so very, very hard. Even when they don't just have Infinite Stormhammer rolling you over, it's pretty difficult. So when that early curve comes down, that extra damage comes down, when they have Dynatamer Brown on 7, yeah, you're not winning those pretty often from the pre-side.
Yeah, very tough overall, but you do see the difference, right? If that card was literally any card but Dino Tamer Bran, Bunnyhoppor actually set himself up in a fairly solid way. He had the Morozund if it was just a develop turn, and he could answer whatever came down with it. He had the Plague in case it was an emergency button, that the turn after. So it did look like he was getting close to just about sticking on, but as you mentioned, just the sheer damage from Bran, not having a straight up just death answer plus heal maybe to recover from that push is often too much. But it does leave SilverName in a fairly solid position for the rest of this series. The only question that I always do have is Warrior left up for Bunnyhoppor, which means we do have to keep asking ourselves, is that going to be a problem, or is it just going to be the way to go with the lineup and going with a Demon Hunter ban instead? It'll be very, very interesting overall. But this SilverName's Priest, I believe this looks about as standard as it gets, Subtle.
Yeah, the 2-mana slot is kind of floating. We're seeing 2 Death, 2 Penance, 2 Veil Weaver as pretty much the core in Europe Grandmasters, at least. I'm not entirely so sure about the other regions. But some people on ladder you'll see playing a Pyromancer in one of those spots, sometimes in place of one of the Deaths, sometimes in place of one of the Veil Weavers. So it's mostly nailed down to this point. I know Zananan, I think, was playing around with hard-running Dark Prophecy last night, maybe. So maybe there's still some way to go with the overall deck list before we get finalized. But for right now, at least, this does seem to be pretty universally agreed on as the good list.
Yeah, one thing that does shock me, honestly, is just a lack of ooze. I feel like, especially when we talk about all the flexible cards, are going to be in that 2-drop slot as to, do you play 1 Death, 2 Deaths, 2 Sethics, so on and so on. I am continually surprised that running a deck that is purposely leaving up Hunter and Demon Hunter and 2 slots are still question marks, the ooze just doesn't fit in there somehow. And maybe that changes next week. Maybe I'm being dumb and I'm just missing something stupid. But the ooze feels like it fits so well and might just be the extra little bit of help Priest needs in some of the harder matchups to just, even if they win a little bit more often, just a few percentage points more often, maybe that's just good enough for that card slot.
Raven, you're just not thinking like a Priest player. Look, if you queue into Warrior, you just wait for them to play their Sky Raider, and then you play Madame Lazul, and you just take the Cobalt Sticky Finger that they got off the Sky Raider, and then there you go, boom, there's your weapon destruction.
How silly of me.
You've just got to get creative, okay?
Well, I'm going to have to get creative with my casting because we're about to go into a Priest mirror. And
is it actually? Oh, let's go. Let's go. All right, the first one I'm hyped about. The next 3 after this I'll be miserable about, but the first one, oh, let's go. I'm here for it.
I guess I'm going to go for my 40-minute dinner break, and I'll come back and see how you got on, Sol, yeah?
Spear, we did test some Priest mirrors in our testing yesterday.
So
Raven lasted exactly 1 and then tapped out and said no more.
Oh, come on. Not the full
That's what
story.
happened. It's accurate. I mean, if you want the full story, you generated a bunch of Solarians and you should have been winning, but then I thought stole them all from you, and then you lost.
Yeah, pretty much. Most importantly, it was tea time and I was hungry. So I went again. Okay. was the real important factor. But in this game, Soul Mirror there for Mr. Bunnyhoppor, along with the Madame Lazul Keep in the opening hand. So are we already diving into Mulligan's strategies, Subtle? Do you like the Lazul just to drop down as a playable 3 cards?
I do, yeah. I think there aren't particularly huge numbers of cards that you want to keep in the matchup, but I think Lazul does just about make it. Early tempo is fairly irrelevant. I don't want to overstate it because you certainly can get advantages by being aggressive in the early game. And I do actually think it's important to have playable cards in the early game because as soon as you get to the Galakron point of the matchup, it's going to be so hard to press the hero power every turn anyway because your hand's so full that normally the player who's got less out of their cards and just played them more aggressively in the early game has more space later in the game so they can press more hero powers. So weirdly, by getting less value in the early game, you get more value in the late game, if that explanation made any sense whatsoever. So that actually ties in nicely to what I was about to say, which is the absolute key card is, I think, what Bunnyhoppor just drew here is the Fate Weaver. So getting to 2 invokes quickly and then being able to drop Fate Weaver on your hands makes it much, much easier to clear out hand space and just continue to cast Thought Steal, to have Sessic Veil Weaver turns, to be able to press your Galakron button every single turn. Just make sure you're squeezing everything out of your hand as efficiently as possible.
Yep, I genuinely do like to play tempo in this matchup, at least at the beginning, as you mentioned. But I will say as well, just in case you guys don't know, Fate Weaver can be generated as well. And when one player starts stacking Fate Weavers, the game gets very silly, as you could just start doing very, 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 very silly things with some of the crazy cards you can get late game. So we'll see if that pans out. But honestly, there are so many branching paths to this matchup. You kind of have to just strap in and go, go along for the ride. Bunnyhoppor choosing not to play anything, maybe a little bit scared of a apotheosis from SilverName as he got to stick a minion first.
We're also reaching the point already where hand size can start to become a concern. SilverName played 1 card, but it's replaced itself in hand. So obviously he has coin. So if Bunnyhoppor plays cards here for SilverName to react to, then SilverName can react to those cards and get cards out of his hand.
Your demise be near.
Are these the next reaction videos, Sol? Is this the spot in the market we're missing here? Raven and Sol react to priest hands. It answers a hard no. Okay, well, I'll take that idea elsewhere.
Sorry, I'm way too invested in this priest mirror already. I was more invested in how Bunny is reacting to SilverName's hand, as he's just got to see a good chunk of it.
Sandtooth Waterbearer is a pretty annoying minion, honestly. It's one of those cards that I think is so close to making priest lists, but just doesn't quite fit. I think the priest, Galakron priest as of today is very, very... I want to use the word solved because there are just so many cards that feel like must plays. Sandtooth Waterbearer is just a nightmare to deal with. Just try to time rip on curve, of course, but if you res it, or even if it just sticks around late game, heals up some of the big minions you end up just trading a lot with, it'd be huge.
I think that's what Bunny was potentially looking for there with his timing, is he wanted maximum chance of finding an Invoke card, or I guess a Galakron of his own, since he has none of those things in hand right now. And as I mentioned, it feels like getting Fate Weavers down is pretty important in the matchup, and Bunnyhoppor's a long way from doing that right now. SilverName, though, 2 Invokes done, Fate Weaver in hand already. Can start to make some tempo plays here if he wants to. But neither player has Galakron in hand just yet, so whether they want to be liberally throwing out their cards left, right, and center without the backup plan just yet remains to be seen.
Yeah, and one of the problems is it's not often you snag sort of wins out of nowhere in this matchup by pushing early. But the idea of pushing early is getting cards out of your hand and making your opponent use some of their removal. But with basically, with the dev sort of gutting the damage from hand for priest, i.e. no Mind Blast, Smite not really working, and a few of the other options, even just no Divine Spirit means you can't just Divine Spirit in a fire out of nowhere and kill someone. It really is just trying to pull removal out of the hand. Like, if you can say, okay, I got to late game Mirror, and they've used 2 Shadow Word Deaths, a Breath of the Infinite, and 2 Apotheosis, you're probably feeling pretty good about life, maybe even a Soul Mirror. Probably feeling pretty good about your chances.
Alright, who's thirsty?
SilverName just going to play straight up Sandhoof here. So although he does have the Invokes for the Fate Weaver, he doesn't really have any key cards to discount right now. And I talk about that, I'm looking at Kronks, Soul Mirror, Murazond, essentially the things that allow you to make enormous swing turns and actually put pressure back on your opponent. If you can get those nice and cheap, you can actually create some big late game swings and actually put your opponent on the back foot pretty effectively.
It does have death, and that's you can make that 0 mana or 1 mana very, very, very often, and even just having just instant removal from some of the bigger turns late game, say the Murazin turns, is pretty huge.
Shadow Word Death is not quite a Soul Mirror, though.
Close, but not quite, I agree, yeah.
Shadow Madness, another very key card in the matchup.
We are all bound.
Probably the #1 card in the matchup not to get got by. What does he say? Learn Obedience Peon? Is that what he says?
Yeah.
That's great. New favorite card right there. It's my favorite thing about casting Hearthstone, because I play on mute, I just never get to hear all this stuff.
Peons are the worker units from Warcraft 3 Orcs.
What? Okay, sure.
Which is, I mean, why it's more relevant to the specific Orc.
I was going to say, like, Peon is a fairly widely used word.
I know Peon's a word, I'm just saying specifically for that card.
Right, okay. I appreciate a little lore deep dives every now and again, right?
Must consider.
As long as you don't reach Nimsh levels, we're good.
I did very quickly note the emphasis on every now and again that was even maybe quite subtle there in your phrase, but I heard it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Even just a Shadow of Death on this Fate Weaver is a mini victory for SilverName, I feel, just because he's not really committed much to create this, and it's just -1 death now for Bunny.
Yeah, there is a generated one, though, so you can argue Bunny has an extra Shadow Word Death, so he was more happy to just throw one away.
Although the second you start trying to consider generated cards is the second you just go crazy.
Which is why you will go crazy playing this matchup, because you have to consider it. Because, honestly, like, if you use Deck Tracker, right, and there's that little flag of when a card is generated in hand, by the time you reach, like, turn 12, turn 13 of the game or something, which is about, I don't know, 10% of the way through the actual matchup, then every single card in hand is just flagged with that generated card marker. Like, that's just where you are in the matchup. Mind Flayer card, dangerous card in the matchup. If you do anything too good with it, you give your opponent the opportunity to just steal it with Shadow Madness. Again, particularly if they then have some generated spells from Sethic Veilweaver in hand, and you give, like, I don't know, Shadow Madness, Grave Rune, trade it in, pop it over, like, kind of business. The revived copies don't actually retain the Death Rattle when you do that kind of thing, but it's still, like, a huge swing on the board. Here it does get the buff, though, so I like SilverName's usage. It's actually very hard to use this card without getting punished in the matchup, so making it out of range of Shadow Madness, this feels like good timing to use the card.
Yeah, and just generates just another reasonably sized threat, right? Just a 5/5. Like, yeah, it's as I mentioned at the start of the game, SilverName's not just going to randomly like race Bunnyhoppor down and kill him, but it's more just about, okay, well, this 5/5 can't just be left alone because it exists, right? It needs to be dealt with in some respect. And honestly, this 2/2 is really just making the work, making Bunnyhoppor put a lot of work into this. 2 buffed minions now he's had to deal with.
Mummy needs 5 more minutes.
I like it.
Not too quickly.
I think I will say as well. Any player that gets frustrated with what their opponent does, steals, uses, whatever, in this matchup, can stop it, because you've chosen this. You play Priest, they might play Priest, made you bed. Don't sleep in it, because you've only done this to yourself. So I'll be watching player cams very closely.
Alright. Weird time for a soapbox, but, you know, go off, King. It's fine.
We've got time.
Yeah, that's true. So, SilverName's hand starting to do an absolutely fat load of nothing. Yeah, that is kind of indicated in the hard pass that turn. He'll be looking for a Sethic Veilweaver turn, but he needs minions on the other side of the board to be able to get that.
Right, I was going to say, he can at some point just take it in and just try and trade in this hand for a new hand pretty soon, as most of the spells are targeted, apart from the Breath of the Infinite, so he can almost swap every card in hand if he wants.
Ah, yes, a nice tempo light well, just what we needed. Bunny gonna push with an Apotheosis here? No.
Saving up for double Apotheosis on the Lightwell. The real threat in minion. The ultimate healing god. It's just a Lightwell with double Apotheosis on it.
Yeah. I mean, I think more reasonably, he also now has a discounted hand with a Sethic Veilweaver in it, so those Apotheosis can be used to greater value later on to recycle into new cards.
The game does look very different when neither player has Galakron, though, doesn't it? At this point in the game.
It does.
It's very strange. Normally, around now, you're looking at each player almost aggressively pressing Galakron hero power and just seeing what awkward boards they can make. And not only awkward for their opponent, but awkward for specifically Soul Mirror as well. That's one thing you don't want. You don't want to give your opponent a strong Soul Mirror turn, because that's when it can really flip around.
Yeah, and you've also got to worry about when your opponent does give you a strong Soul Mirror turn, are they doing it deliberately because they want to Murazond your Soul Mirror the next turn? You laugh, I'm being serious. It's like, that's a real thing.
It was more of a close to
Exasperated sigh kind of thing, yeah.
Not too quickly.
All right.
I was actually
Big turn
looking at it in a fire. I was actually looking at it in a fire there.
All right, that's pretty funny. And rope number 1. Okay.
Psychic Split's pretty good. I actually think I would have gone in a fire. It's just a surprise factor. Sometimes you stick a big minion in this matchup.
Yeah, I think Bunny just hit problems at the end of that turn because he had so little time left to do so many things that, you know, he had to contemplate hand size because when he started generating multiple renews, of course, each one of them is adding a card to his hand, not just replacing it. So I think he just started doing things as quickly as he possibly could, just trying to get as many actions through as possible.
And that was definitely a factor in the fire choice as well, because that doesn't generate, right? It'll only generate with the Sethic.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't cast it that turn anyway, so it was just a one-card play done. I just thought it was good as maybe a little surprise factor.
Give me all the Shadow Madnesses, Raven. I do like the SilverName skipped Grave Rune twice. I do think that card is kind of bait in this matchup. Feels like the kind of like high-value explosive thing that you should be able to get paid out for. But a lot of times there's just multiple cards that punish you. Soul Mirror, Shadow Madness if you do it on something small.
Fall Shadow Priest, post Galakron, and so on.
Yeah. You want a deep dive into the punishes? Yeah, we'll be here a while.
Needs to start crafting this Godwell. Psyche Split on it.
Just Apotheosis Psyche Split, go face, your turn.
Yes! He just suddenly gains the Lyra voice. Voiceovers. Great.
I'm scared for the rest of this weekend, Raven. We're not even halfway through the deck in our first Priest Mirror, and you've already gone delirious.
The worst part is, I don't particularly dislike Priest, it's just the mirror match is so weird.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as the game starts, it gets harder and harder to break down because there are more and more silly things happen.
Ooh, there's the boy.
Well, just don't do what I did, Bunnyhoppor. Make tons of them, and then your opponent just steals them all.
Psyche Split, Forbidden Words. This is very cute interaction that's worth knowing about. Psyche Split does not create the copy on your opponent's side of the board. You get it. So you can actually make swing turns with that. Actually, in our testing, Gia used it to deal with King Crush on the other side of the board, which is pretty sweet.
And that's, I think it's fair to even point out earlier than that. Psyche Split can be cast on an opponent's minion. I don't think at a glance at the card that seems that obvious if you just, apply general buffs to the game. Or minion generation, anyway. There is a Pyromancer generated here from SilverName, and although he doesn't need the healing, it is some form of AoE that might help take down this board.
So yeah, I guess we should cover Reliquary of Souls is kind of the nuts in this matchup because we're going to go to Fatigue, almost certainly. Obviously, this will extend your deck size by 1 card, which is enormous. However, because it's so important, you generally don't want to play it until you can kill it yourself in the same turn to get value out of it. Because of the card Shadow Madness and Cabal Shadow Priest being generated from random effects and so on, as Raven was talking about. So, for example, Bunnyhoppor still has 2 Penance left in his deck that he can just shoot his own guy with to blow it up. But there's also the argument that SilverName has used 1 Shadow Madness and 1 generated Shadow Madness at this point. So maybe you don't have to worry about it. But again, that way madness lies. Because again, I am actually looking at Deck Tracker, and I am looking at all the markers for randomly generated cards in SilverName's hand. And yeah, it's pretty much all of them.
Also, SilverName's not played Lazul yet, though, right?
Right.
So he could Lazul it if Bunnyhoppor doesn't get it out of his hand.
Correct. Yeah. And again, that becomes amplified when Galakron comes into play, because then there's Envoy of Lazul as well that can do the same thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Lazul. Cards like Resurrect and Katrina Muerta, cards like that, although a little bit weak to an opponent's Morozond, are powerful in this matchup because they're just 1 card, it doesn't generate new cards in hand, and it does a good job, right? It basically creates a threatening board for your opponent to consider, at least.
Mm-hmm.
So, outside of Morozond, of course, pretty good pickups. Okay. There is now the Krons for Bunnyhoppor, which means he can get to this Galakron as and when he chooses, and I think that might happen sooner rather than later.
Well, the problem is it draws a card, though, if you do that, which kind of creates a problem. Like, yeah, you're getting a bunch of value by playing Galakron nice and early, but does that matter if you're going to fatigue before your opponent because you drew your Galakron?
I guess my problem is if you wait, or potentially, depending on where Galakron is in the deck, of course, if you have to wait till late to play Galakron and start pressing the hero power, if you just started generating cards way too late in the game and you die to fatigue anyway.
Well, so here's the thing. He has Morozond in his hand already. So if Bunny chooses, SilverName cannot get out ahead of Bunny by playing Galakron multiple turns earlier. Because if Bunny chooses, as soon as SilverName plays Galakron, he can just Morozond and also become Galakron.
That's true.
So things stay even, regardless of what happens. So I don't actually think Bunny needs to draw a card in this scenario.
The rest of his turn is looking weak if he doesn't, though.
True.
I must consider.
Take Plague of Death, play Plague of Death.
Not too quickly.
I will act as your scapegoat.
Wait, what's happening? He's going to have to, like, dump an Apotheosis or something this turn? In this case? Ooh! Oh! Oh,
Spooky
disaster!
noise! I don't think Bunnyhopper's overly happy with the outcome.
Oh. Okay, there is the Galakron, though. And there is no punish in hand, I believe, apart from Soul Mirror, I guess, to be able to abuse this Reliquary. So Bunny saw 1 Shadow Madness, 2 generated Shadow Madnesses already.
Funnily enough, if he Soul Mirrors, he can actually kill off his own Reliquary, which then asks Bunnyhoppor if he can steal SilverName's Reliquary.
Right.
And it starts getting real stupid.
Oh! He thought stole the Shadow Madness.
Easy peasy.
Oh my goodness. Yes, hello police. I'd like to report a mugging.
I feel like it's one of those things where it's like a thief steals from a thief. Is it really stealing?
Well, there is this thing called honor among thieves, right?
Not in Hearthstone, and definitely not in Priest Mirrors.
Clearly not.
Definitely not in Priest Mirrors.
Thy blood be born again.
So now, as you can see, up until that point, there's kind of a half-card advantage in Fatigue to Bunnyhoppor. Now, with that one additional card going into SilverName's deck, the draw phase is reversed, essentially. So, you can call them level on cards, but Bunnyhoppor is the one that is drawing first every turn, which means he will die to Fatigue first, the way things stand.
Yeah, that's the easy way to think about it, right? If all the players just stopped playing the game, Bunnyhoppor dies first. Also, the fact that it's because Reliquary of Souls and now the Prime, because of its lifesteal and pure difficulty in dealing with that card from your opponent, that just makes it even worse, right? Because not only are you behind in Fatigue, not only Bunnyhopper's behind in Fatigue, but also SilverName has a very powerful minion that can almost guarantee healing for a lot.
Right.
I'm not sure what's going on here.
I will act as your scapegoat.
The tagline to every Priest Mirror ever.
I'm just wondering what the plan is for this convincing. Is he just not going to attack?
I guess not.
Okay, fine.
So so weird. So
I just feel it's weird he's using Apotheosis and then the shield just to have a chance at that living. Seemed a bit extreme, but I guess he's got cards to spend.
yeah, I think that's the problem, right? He just needed to play some cards that turn. He didn't necessarily want to play Galakron. He didn't necessarily want to play Mirror. Well, he definitely didn't want to play Murazon. There's just few cards that he was actually able to get out of his hand that turn because Lazul replaces itself, Time Rip replaces itself. He just kind of had to make the best with what he had that turn. Yeah, this Pyro is super weird. He generated this off a Faceless Lackey like multiple turns ago. It's just been hard carrying ever since then.
Can be time ripped now. Pretty easily. Away from Bunnyhoppor to move this minion off the board, and most importantly, Bunnyhoppor has opened up a certain amount of hand space for him. Not a lot, but still.
Yep.
Did he just play Circle of Healing?
I have dumped a lot of Circle of Healings in my time in Priest Mirrors, I can tell you that much.
Play it turn anyway.
Nice! Yep. Cycles of Penance. Yeah, okay, that's pretty cool.
I've been waiting
like
for this
that.
in a fire.
I did have a nonsense swing turn at one point in a Priest Mirror. It's the only real time I've got like super value out of Circle of Healing, where it was like Soul Mirror, Breath of the Infinite for a clear, and then I got to circle like all the stuff back up again.
Yep, and if you're wondering, maybe 5 minutes ago we said goodbye to most of the actual cards in the game, and everything's generated by now. So every card that's played is going to have some text underneath it that says created by. Now we're going down the rabbit hole of how much can these players play around. There are a couple of cards though. There is Galakron, there is Murazond, and there is Soul Mirror.
Rond, yeah.
I guess.
Soul Mirror Rond.
Yeah, Galakron.
Blood
Okay.
born again.
Go with the theme, Sal's. Go with the theme.
Okay.
But outside of those, at this point, I think you're in the Wild West, right?
Yep. Pretty much.
I'm interested to see when these plagues come out. Because you still hand over priority to your opponent, and because it's this nature of this mirror match, and it's not, say, an aggro matchup or a mid-range matchup where you plague and it's like, okay, they're probably not able to refill. The plague might just make your opponent just do the same again, and then you're in the same spot with just one less card in hand. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. I think this is really tough at this point in the game, especially with Bunnyhoppor's hand.
Yeah, I'm still curious about that turn where, the turn where he played out the Reliquary of Souls and got it Shadow Madness was the turn where, like, I sort of mused at, like, well, maybe just take Plague of Death and play Plague of Death this turn, just because then you achieved something this turn at least.
Or is Plague just the ultimate endgame fatigue card, right? If SilverNames goes Prime or goes something crazy with a big board to try and be his final push, it's just Plague to say no.
Well, I don't think so, right? Because unless it's, like, literally final board from SilverName, threatening lethal, and SilverName is dying to fatigue that turn, right? Then it's good. But otherwise, you just play Plague of Death, and then your opponent, even if they have no cards in their hand for some reason, you play Plague of Death, they press the hero power, and they play a minion, and they're ahead again.
The future is clear.
Maybe we're just going to see it kill the Prime.
Oh! All of the Murazons.
Maybe we just see Plague be actually just 9 mana kill the Prime that Bunnyhoppor knows he has. Or one of the Plagues.
So this is where I get stuck in the matchup, right? Because Murazond is the nuts. Murazond and Soul Mirror, I would say, are the two nutso cards outside of Galakrond, right? But how long can SilverName sit with all of these, like, dream cards in his hand, waiting for, like, the perfect opportunity to drop them? Like, was the pick there maybe Apotheosis, just because it was a playable card that he can get out of his hand? This is the part I find really, really hard about this matchup.
This is the part where, because it's hard, I find it easy. I just start playing stuff and try and kill them.
Okay. It's so high level that you've just cycled all the way back round to the bottom again? Yeah. Okay. So there you go. There's the interaction I was talking about several turns ago, and why I don't think it was important for Bunnyhoppor to draw a card here. With his Kronks.
Didn't get the weapon, though.
No.
Obviously, I'm not saying that's... Sorry, that sounded like I'm surprised.
It did sound like you were surprised.
I'm not surprised. I'm saying the difference is, yes, he gets the hero power, but does not get the benefit of the weapon. So SilverName does have a certain level of advantage, especially now with a Kronks draw. He's starting to represent a pretty good hit, if he really wants to.
He is. Of course, it remains awkward for Bunnyhoppor even now to use Kronks to maybe, board clear, make an 8/8, deal damage and heal, whatever you want to do with Kronks. Because even if he were to do that now, he still draws his other Galakrond that's still in his deck, so he's still drawing a card.
Greetings,
and this is where it really, from what I've seen of Priest Mirrors, it is each player to their own at this point, because you're so deep into the game that for me, I was even looking at, yes, SilverName got the hero power, so he got more value. I was wondering that turn whether he goes Kronks into an 8/8. And then just start saying to Bunnyhoppor, okay, I have the weapon to help with trades if needed. He has a handful of powerful things. If Bunnyhoppor does any removal or any minions to try and counter SilverName's minion push, then he can Murazond or Death or whatever. So I feel like because SilverName's got so many varied answers in hand, he can start being a little bit more aggressive and board-centric. But instead, SilverName went for the hero power. Did get the Convincing Infiltrator, which was very nice. It just fit the curve perfectly. But it's just still quite slow, and I don't know if SilverName needs to be slow now.
Is this just... Are you just letting your inner wishes come out into your context, into your casting, Raven?
No, so in all honesty, I'm no pro at Priest Mirrors, but I think if you're ahead on board and you have a Kronks to do the AoE buff, I think you just start pushing bits. Just push damage, and if they clear your board, fine, you make another board. If they don't clear your board, great. Because there is limited healing now that both players are Galakrond. There's limited healing available in the game.
Or another way of looking at it, so there's infinite healing available in the game.
What if?
There's no limit to how many 5/5s you can generate. There's no limit to how many generated Sethic Veil Weavers can give you more apotheosis as you cycle spells off them.
I'm going to make you cast the next one.
What?
I've just come up with a new challenge for myself. It's just to suggest the most ridiculous play I can think of in the Priest Mirror with enough conviction that Raven thinks I'm being serious. Some point this weekend that's going to happen, okay? Look out for that.
Don't take my thing, Sol. Suggesting ridiculous plays is mine.
Yeah, but you never sound like you mean it. That's the trick here, is I'm going to make you consider it as if it's a serious thing. That's the fine art that's going down.
Ooh. Good little steal there from SilverName. Gets even more value.
Did he again? So wait, was that off Psychic Conjurer?
Yes,
He just ripped a. Oh my goodness! All of Bunny's Shadow Madnesses are just being used against him. That's so nonsense.
Maybe.
Damage is starting to be a bit of a threat. I know there's only 7 power on board right now, but Bunnyhoppor doesn't actually have just a direct answer outside of Plague to this.
Maybe.
But with the weapon, there is a little bit of fear. I was also wondering, was the ultimate tech card for anyone who brought Priest the normal Alexstrasza?
The ultimate tech card for anyone who bought Priest if you're trying to win the Priest Mirror was Archivist Elysiana.
What about Alexstrasza? It's more fun and doesn't hurt my soul personally.
Alright, Plague of Death number 1 does go down.
Funnily enough, Plague, really good card against Murzand.
Yeah.
Not really going to get the Murzand backswing with that, are you?
It's also worth knowing, like, going to your point of, like, SilverName pushing and being aggressive, he did actually see Plague of Death at some point, I believe, right? When he took the Murzond out of his opponent's hand, I think Plague of Death is one of the cards he was offered. So that could be, part of his reasoning of why he's not trying to capitalize on the aggression he did have at some point, because he knew it would get shut down by Plague of Death anyway.
I do like the Reliquary now.
What?
It's awkward enough, no spot removal, and any AoE removal, I just Plague. I guess it's tough. The problem SilverName has is if there's Galakron from Bunnyhoppor. But I think at this point, well, that's just something he has to take. I don't think he can afford to pass this turn. And I think the only other option here is Kronks, and that's worse if there's Galakron in hand.
Sure. I do think the board's actually just a pretty good place for the Reliquary as well, right? Because it's the one place where it's least likely to get stolen.
Yeah.
If it's in your deck, it can get Thought Stolen. If it's in your hand, it can get Lazuld or Envoy of Lazul.
I think it would require like 3 cards for it to be stolen, right? The -2 and then -2 again. And then a Cabal Shadow Priest, exactly.
Yeah.
Like that's like just never going to happen, is it?
Yeah.
What?
There's Galakron on time.
Yeah, it is weirdly still very important for Bunny to have drawn this card, even though he is already Galakron. Firstly, he gets the 5/2 claw, same as his opponent, so he kind of matches that advantage that SilverName has at this point. Secondly, his Kronks is now able to be played, which is pretty freaking important.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, and might not have seen it too often, what subtle means is, yes, Kronks could have been played for the Kronks buff, where you choose one, because Bunnyhoppor is Galakron. The problem is, Kronks likes to do a good job. And that means does everything on his job description. So he will do the ability on board that you pick, and also draw Galakron like he promised, because there is still a Galakron in your deck. So that's what Subtle meant by Kronks being unplayable, because Bunnyhoppor did not want to draw the additional card out of his deck.
Yeah. Sorry, obviously I did mention that earlier, but yes, you are right. There are people who may have joined the broadcast in the last 2 hours while this one game has been going on, so they might not have caught that. You are absolutely right.
So again, questions have to be asked because of how strange that... Well, not strange, but how much of a weird Morazan turn that is for SilverName. Does he just now go with the Reliquary? Because otherwise, I'm not sure. He has 10 cards in hand, so you can't even hero power and see what happens.
He also at some point needs to get enough cards out of his hand that he can Thought Steal before Bunny's deck runs empty and he doesn't get any value from it.
Was he just Breath of the Infinite? Bury this to me? Is that too crazy? I know you mentioned earlier Soul Mirror Breath of the Infinite often gets there. Or are you going to hold on for that?
He just plays an 8/8. Nice. It's weird because actually that interaction is often really key in the matchup where one player like has a nutty Soul Mirror and then the opponent just mirrors on's back and just, you know, Soul Mirrors and just reverses the situation on the board again. Like we still saw that happen, but we saw kind of the upside of Bunny doing what he did, which was make a Soul Mirror where everything on board dies because then there's no counter swing from the opponent with the mirrors on.
What I'm really interested in right now is what SilverName's plan is for this Reliquary. And I'm not saying he's wrong with what he's doing, or he's wrong by not playing it. I'm just generally interested to know what his plan is. There's been multiple turns in this game where he could have dropped it out fairly safely, and he's not done. He's not done so oh!
Okay.
Play the guessing game.
Yeah, there is no given correct answer here, which there is sometimes. So I think the logic in that scenario is pick the one you want the most, because there's really nothing to go on. I believe all of the natural copies of all of those cards have been played. No, the natural Murazond is still in SilverName's deck. So that was actually probably statistically the most likely pick from Bunny.
I'm going to go for the Thoughtsteel Fate Weaver, I imagine. Thoughtsteel.
We are all bound to fate.
Infinite value! That's the joke you're supposed to make there, right? Pretty sure.
Maybe.
Here's the thing, though. Bunny needs a plan. Because he is losing by some distance right now. By some distance, I mean one card.
This is where I get stuck, right? It's where I never really know what's good enough or what's, you know, a trap. Because to me, Katrina Muerta and Death seems fine. Or any, you know, big dude in Death seems fine. But then you just play into the Murazan you know is there.
Time is running out.
Then they get Katrina Muerta again, and then they probably get you. But then if you don't do anything, you're just losing. So is it just an endless spiral? Is my question, Sutton. I want you to answer that.
Well, you can make sort of balanced plays that don't get punished super hard by Murazond, or at least have pretty significant failure rates, which this turn kind of is, right? Because there's a Death and a Katrina in it. So SilverName, if he Murazond did this, he could play Katrina first and then Death his own Katrina. He could Death his own Murazond and then play Katrina afterward. You know, like, it's not necessarily a huge swing turn. There's an iteration where it's a huge swing turn, but it's not the most likely outcome. So I think, like, hedging with, like, good card, bad card is a pretty decent scenario to be in when you know your opponent has Murazond to potentially punish you.
Sounds like the name of a game for the next set of Grandmasters interviews. Good card, bad card.
It's actually a pretty good idea, right? TJ, are you watching?
I think
Get on
TJ
it.
needs a good idea based on some of the ones I've seen so far.
That's true.
My blood be born again.
Count your blessings, mate.
Nice. Ends up with a playable minion at the end of the chain, which is super important to get him space in his hand. Infinite value!
And the 100th Shadow Madness of the day!
Oh, yes. Every card SilverName steals is either a Shadow Madness or a Thought Steal to steal more Shadow Madnesses. This is great. Okay. That's huge. He is, however, out of penances. Never mind, there's one right here. Forget I said anything.
If he plays it, though, he gives SilverName an additional one with Murs.
Yup. No, that's an excellent point.
And he's just gonna get Shadow Madness.
Well, he does have the penance, so he can skip the Shadow Madness part.
Time is running out.
Holy Smite for a nice little cheap removal.
He's going to Kronks it instead? Okay. Assuming this is going to be AoE then, right? Yeah, okay. Fine.
This means, though, that if SilverName Murzons, he does get those minions and not the effect, so Kronks won't go off, it'll be a 6-6. He can follow it up with a death on Bunnyhoppor's Kronks if he wants.
Yeah, and he does also have penance for his own Reliquary of Souls that he'll generate as well. He knows full well that Bunny still has Shadow Madnesses because he keeps stealing them every freaking turn.
And also, as you mentioned, if he uses death this time, then there's, again, a certain miss rate of if Bunnyhoppor wants to Murzon attack Murzon. Sure. Generate. Right you are, Relco. Pain and suffering do await us.
What existence, right? Like, the only time that card sees play is when it gets generated in this matchup, and then it's just, like, its purpose is to die immediately. It just pops out like, oh, hey guys, right, get on the board and I'm going to shoot you so you get in my deck. Like, that just doesn't seem like a very happy existence.
Oh, they love it.
Meetings.
What about?
Is this the Galacrons?
We are all bound to fate.
No, he's going to Soul Mirror again. Okay, interesting. Thing that I'm learning from watching Bunnyhoppor is that he's done this twice now in situations where minions don't survive, where it's just a straight up sweep with the Soul Mirror. It's kind of cool. Something that I will definitely look at moving forward. You've got to find something to entertain yourself when you play these mirrors, so generally I just try and play each one completely different and see what happens.
Whispers everywhere.
SilverName still has 2 Soul Mirrors, though, for himself. Along with the Time Rip and the Death, he's got spot removal whenever he wants. Actually, 2 Time Rips. Sorry, I didn't even see the second one. I want to see the Shadow Madness just to bop him in the face. Show him that you've got Shadow Madness spare.
Wait, what?
Just get him.
He's got a Hench Clan Shade Quill in play. What's the plan? Okay, good card. £1,000 right now if you can tell me what SilverName's remaining deck is.
No.
Okay, good. Good answer. That is an acceptable answer.
Wait, so I win? Great. Just holy smites to kill him. Ugh. Another Plague of Death.
Time
Okay. So Bunny is ahead now, and this is important because he needs to be ahead. So the first time in a long while where it seems like Bunnyhoppor might just be able to formulate a plan. Because he has minions, he has a base, he can continue to reload for a couple of turns after this.
Oh, the Armor Ritual is pretty nice, actually.
It is until you get hit by Shadow Madness number 7.
A part of me just wanted to see a Murazan created just to see what it did that turn, because Bunnyhoppor played about 20 cards.
Yeah, he did.
So just see what happens with Murazan.
Wait, genuinely, I made that number up. This is actually Shadow Madness number 7. He's played 5 generated ones. Okay, no, this is number 6, because he still has 1 natural one left in his deck.
Oh. Again!
Yep. So here's the difference, right? This is what I was talking about earlier, where Bunny played his Soul Mirrors in situations where the board got cleared, whereas SilverName has done the opposite of that. So now you open yourself up to the Murazon or the Soul Mirror coming back the other way, which then just reverses this whole board state. So there's kind of a clear difference between the way that both players have used one of their key resources, which is pretty interesting.
What about?
It's also weird though, right? Because just because Bunnyhoppor could Murazan this, it does mean SilverName gets a what I would say is a bit more of a manageable Murazan than some of the others we've seen this game.
Sorry, I didn't follow that at all. What did you say?
So if Bunnyhoppor Murazan's this,
Yeah.
then it's much less impact, right? Because the minions are just smaller.
Sure.
Which means that Bunnyhopper's only left with a 3/3, which I think is fine if that pulls out of Murazan Soul Mirror.
Well, and a 3/3 and an 8/8.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Actually, a 3/1 and an 8/8.
I just mean more, that to me sounds like a very manageable Murazan.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Versus some of the other stuff they could do, right? So
Yeah.
even though, yes, they left minions open, there was a backswing potential, the backswing is so weak, I think actually SilverName's okay with it.
Alright, that's what you're saying. It costs 1? Okay, no. It's the other one. Actually not a bad roll in a lot of occasions, just because it's something that you can just quite happily dump on the board in just about any scenario.
Yep. Again, I'm still just are these... Get swinging that weapon, SilverName. Tell Bunnyhoppor what you're gonna pick.
Oh, if you just giddy up and just smack him for 20.
No.
You just generate another Lazul. You just Galakrond 1 card kill, an OCK. Just Galakrond them for 10 over 6 turns. 3 different Galakronds.
Imagine Alex Strauss in this hand. The future.
Is that right on time? That is right on time. 2 cards left.
He has to play some cards though.
He does.
What do you think, Plague? Everything else generates stuff. Okay, not everything else, but
Breath doesn't.
Maybe.
He has Wretched Reclaimer, which is, again, one of the best cards with the Reliquary of Souls if you generate. I actually lost an hour-long Priest Mirror to Calento on ladder because his final play of the game was, like, Reliquary of Souls, Grave Rune, Wretched Reclaimer, Penance, both of the ones that came out again afterwards. I was like, alright, okay, I guess I lose. That seems fair.
Time is running out.
sounds like a reasonable priest play.
Yep.
Job done. Nice.
I am running out of cards.
Okay, Radiance is a real Hearthstone card in this situation. When you're getting this far deep into fatigue. 5 health can be a big deal.
No. 50 minutes to a priest mirror. We're finally getting cooking. The light at the end of the tunnel is here. So even with the capabilities of healing, the fatigue stacks up just way too quick, and it's why I'm wondering when these reliquaries are going to get played, because it is only really a one-a-turn kind of card, right? They're not reduced down to play them both, and we need to play them, then they need to get to attack, you need to play the other one. It's just quite a slow thing to get going, which means that you really, I think it's important for SilverName to get them down a little bit sooner rather than later now.
SilverName says, "Hey, you know what? That psych split play that you made last turn was, or earlier in the game, was pretty cute. I think I'm gonna do the same thing."
I'm out of cards.
Okay, he's burning a Shadow Madness, I think, off the top, his last card. Which is a little scary. It's a good card.
Yeah, he'll generate 5 more.
Sure.
What if?
The problem now, honestly, is you just look at the resources, and SilverName just wins, right? If just looking at hands without generation. He has 1 extra reliquary. They both have Galakron, so that's. He has the Master Spell, which can help him deal with Bunnyhoppor's reliquary. He still has Soul Mirror.
Yeah, the Soul Mirror is huge.
SilverName's like, oh, I can't believe I burned that Shadow Madness. Really needed that.
Maybe.
Still can go with a Fate Weaver. And whip in a hero power as well.
Yeah, chose to go with the Rip first to get the discount on the minion.
We are all bound.
He now has to play a card before he presses hero power, so he can't get the discount on the Envoy of Lazul. Okay.
And now, First Blood. Fatigue hits.
He's going to make the Wretched Reclaimer play, it looks like, so he keeps the Reborn 3/6. If he'd have seen this at the start of the turn, he might have changed his mind on the Shadow Madness play, because that does get very exciting. But he had to play a card first.
Bound to fate.
Yeah, just goes ahead and plays it. Doesn't really have much upside anymore.
Yeah, and although there's of course intricacies and strong plays to make for this portion of the game, a lot of it will just be who can stick minions, because now any points of damage going face is huge.
Yep.
So even if there's 2-1 sticks to get to go face, that's a big deal. SilverName still has these reliquaries in hand, and again, I'm just
Your head isn't
waiting to see when they come down and what impact they make, because they are the wild card, I think.
Oh! Disgusting. Surely you can just play one every turn until it sticks. Now, at this point, can't you just like clear this board with Galakron and then just play one of your primes every turn until one of them survives?
I think so, yeah.
Better question, do you need to? Is he just winning anyway?
But this is the thing, like, for me, what I want to know is, what's the downside of playing them, right? Because if it's, do you need to? Fine, but you've had them stuck in hand all game. Put something of playing them either earlier or playing them now, but just make it more sure of winning the game as opposed to needing.
Well, I think as soon as SilverName gets ahead on fatigue in the matchup, it's not his job to win anymore, right? Like, he doesn't have to make any initiative. It's just not his job. He can just sit back and let Bunnyhoppor try and win the game. He doesn't have to anymore.
Well, I think more my point is the reliquaries are tough to deal with, right? They're untargetable by your opponent. So
Yes, but he's kept seeing Plague of Death and Galacrond in his opponent's hand. Because remember, this Galacrond in his hand is stolen out of his opponent's hand. Plus, it's his natural Galacrond, but he knows is still in the deck. And pretty much every time he's played a Madame Lazul, he's seen a Plague of Death in his opponent's hand. So I just don't think playing stuff... I mean, up until now, when he has the third one, right, like now it might be getting a bit ridiculous. But up until now, I think he was just asking to get, you know, a good carded by Bunnyhoppor if he was to play one of them, because he knows Bunny has all the answers.
One thing I will say is like hand quality is a little bit weird right now, because don't get me wrong, Reliquary, of course, are fantastic. They both have a Galacrond, so that's evened out. Bunnyhoppor actually has more stuff and enough removal to actually deal with these Reliquaries.
Yeah.
So maybe he gets over the line. There's one play going to be used on the sideboard. Now we finally...
It's got to be time.
Clock.
It's got to be time, surely. The board's empty.
If he just plays this one drop and passes, I'd probably cry.
More like this than a word.
Don't you do it to me, SilverName.
The other question is, I'm not 100% sure whether this Murozond in hand for Bunny is the natural one or not, or whether that's a generated one. Because that makes a difference as well as to whether you want to be playing Reliquary Primes, because obviously, you know, you just give one to your opponent if you do so.
It is, but you do have Master Spell Death, right?
Sure, yeah, that's a
so
good point.
That's what I'm looking at, right? Although it does draw SilverName a card, which would just need one extra fatigue, of course. That's bad. But if he just bypasses it and then kills him, because next turn he can Galacrond and just push damage as well, right?
That's true. Yeah. That's very true. That's much more enticing than the Master Spell plan.
Yeah. The options are there, but what I mean is SilverName's path now is fairly straightforward outside of his hero power every turn.
Mm-hmm.
It's like he's got the damage, he's got the way to bypass the awkwardness so that Bunnyhoppor can put in the way. So Bunnyhoppor's definitely on the defensive. As I mentioned, fatigue stacks up so quickly, and you do run out of spells in this matchup as well. Get to the late game, you don't have access to tons of heals because there aren't that many of your cards that actually generate spells outside of second.
SilverName gives the nod. This is the removal that he's accounted for. He knows the Galacrond is there. I think he was unsurprised to see one more Plague of Death be played by Bunnyhoppor. I think that's the second one that Bunny has now played this game. Is he going to be prepared for Plague of Death number 3?
Wait, you should play it this turn, right? You just want minions? Okay. I didn't know whether he wanted to hold on to it because he has death, to go second death or something.
Lifesteal does proc for SilverName. That is a win in its own right. But Bunny is now able to deal with one of these with an Aeon Reaver, which is actually a huge victory for him in this scenario. That's actually, in the context of how, you know, fine the details are at this point in the late game, that's an enormous tempo swing. It might not look like it, but it really is.
Yeah, I wonder if that's even enough to draw out the Galacrond, because there's no way to actually kill it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Bunny has to respect the Sethic Veil Weaver, though. That's also a huge deal for the SilverName, that Bunny feels like he has to smack his weapon into a 2-3 there.
He's got a wide board, though.
He does.
And he can gain 5 more armor with this Murozond.
Wait, what?
Oh wait, it doesn't gain the armor, right? Being stupid. If the Galacrond comes down.
Oh, I see. Sure.
I am beyond imagination. Succumb to madness.
He's getting to play the Reliquary as well.
But now, Plague of Death number 4? Is it enough?
Is it too... Oh, wait?
Because there's no
That's
hero
too late.
power here. Like, SilverName has kind of pushed quite heavily all in.
Right.
So hang on, 5 damage, he takes 6 next turn plus 5, so he takes 11 next turn. So Radiant's Plague of Death, he's alive?
But it doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, he needs a
'Cause he can
lifesteal.
pass.
Yeah. He needs a lifesteal thing in play this turn.
Yep, to bridge the gap. Because otherwise
bridge
he would
the
Plague
gap.
Radiance, SilverName just swings, and then he plays the Reliquary, and next turn SilverName passes deadly.
Yeah, and this is going to be over because of the Master Spell. SilverName
Yep.
can afford to tank the 1 extra card drill or here off the Master Spell. So I believe he now gets through.
Any reason to not play Radiance? I don't think so, right? Well, the reason is to play the 1-1, but it's literally a 1-mana 1-1 right now.
Yeah.
On wings of destruction, they come.
Only the 1-1.
Yeah, it takes 5, takes 6 from the Master Spell, but there's still plenty
Yep.
to be able to come through and end the game.
Something that's soul destroying. It's after an hour, almost exactly an hour-long game of Priest Mirror there.
Was that really?
Well, I glanced at it, and I think we were a turn or so in, and it was 2 minutes past 6, and it is now exactly 7 o'clock. So after an hour, you lose to a Master Spell at the very end there. I think both players at the end got pretty close. I mean, without that Master Spell, Bunnyhoppor might have just survived long enough, especially considering he had a few options of his own, right? He had the Radiance, and he had just the Bone Dragon, the Katrina Murta to put on enough damage to maybe backswing on SilverName. But that Priest Mirror chalked that one up for SilverName, and SilverName going 2-1 in this series so far. SilverName, yet another player who's much needed the win. I feel like this was almost meant to be, as we've had 3 matches so far today, this being the 3rd, and all like each match having a player who was, 0 and X, basically needing and desperately needing wins on the board to keep him with a fighting chance here. Looks like Bunnyhoppor is going to switch over to his Warrior though, so that's going to be a big question mark as the Warrior is being left up, and it is the Demon Hunter from Bunnyhoppor that was banned out by SilverName. SilverName only has his Demon Hunter left, so we're going to see again maybe back to the original top 2 archetypes of this expansion Soto, which was Demon Hunter and Warrior.
Right.
I still think this is a closer matchup than people might give it credit for as well.
You think so? You're like a bigger fan of the Demon Hunter than most people, is what you're saying potentially?
Yeah, I still think Warrior's favored, don't get me wrong, but I think Demon Hunter's got a better chance than most people give it credit for. I have been just killed by Demon Hunter so fast that without getting, the strong early draws and the early Risk Escaper or the early Armor Smiths or being able to combo, even if you clear them off the board, Demon Hunter's access to Warglaives, Metamorphosis, and even just buffs, that means that you can just actually get killed because your hero power alone is not enough, in my experience, to fend off the sheer, just straightforward turn after turn damage.
Sounds like you're probably just bad, Raven. That's what I'm getting from this.
Okay, well, let's see how it plays out. Do you think it's like very favored for Warrior?
I mean, define very. I think it's like approaching 60% or maybe even slightly above for the Warrior, yeah.
Okay. It's a little bit different as well for Bunnyhoppor here, as I wouldn't say Bunnyhopper's playing what's been, or at least what I would deem the standard list, as he's still playing those eggs. He's playing the eggs and Terran Gorefiend as well. Only 1 Corkron, but he is playing that Grommash Hellscream, but there is no Deathwing in the deck, which is a card I actually quite like versus Demon Hunter, honestly, because they just can never kill it.
What now?
So far here for Bunnyhoppor, though, he has a choice between just getting that egg down or just dropping a Bloodsail Raider, which does contest the Battlefiend quite nicely.
I must choose.
Honestly,
Yeah,
there's no inner rage, there's no immediate payoff for that egg, is there?
right. That's the question, though, of like potentially whether you want to play to outs from the top of your deck at this point, or whether you necessarily need to have this thing contested even when you have Warmaul Challenger on the following turn.
I think, funnily enough, the Warmaul Challenger makes me want to not play egg this turn. because Rampage is a good target for the egg if you can proc it. But because he has Warmaul Challenger, which almost always has a target that leaves Warmaul on high health against Demon Hunter on curve, it means you can go Warmaul Challenger into Rampage pretty consistently.
Yeah.
Which means you just don't need to just play an egg that might just fly anyway.
Yeah, agreed. I like this curve. Does Bunny look like a man who just had his soul destroyed to you? Looks like pretty regular old Bunnyhoppor to me.
What now?
Yeah, not often the most emotive person we see.
Also, thinking about it, has Bunnyhoppor spent 2 hours of his life playing Priest Mirrors on broadcast in GM and have 0 wins to show for it up to this point?
I hope not, for his sanity.
I think that's what's happened. Unlucky.
I'm not even that sympathetic, as I mentioned all the way back when, a whole hour ago. If you bring Priest, it's what you can get, okay?
Yeah.
You open yourself up to Priest Mirrors.
We're with you.
So as Raven was saying, the Rampage is going to be huge here. You'll quite often see Demon Hunter players in this scenario just taking a bunch of weird value bumps into the 1-8 anyway with all of their 2 health minions, just to reduce the impact of this scenario, but SilverName wasn't even far enough ahead to really be doing that. This mana burn just does nothing. Like, it's just, okay, I will spend my 2 mana this turn on the best card in my deck.
I've got a question for you, Saul. This is a bit of a tough one, I think.
Okay.
What year did SilverName win Worlds? Because he's running mana burn in Demon Hunter.
Oh, is he? That's
that
a
was
great
an actual
question.
mana burn. I'm just wondering which year
okay.
it was, and I must have missed it, so I apologize, SilverName.
It was 2014, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was this secret tournament where just 8 people were invited, and then they called it a world championship for some reason, and then kept using SilverName's face on a graphic over and over again for years, even though there was no legitimate claim to it being a world championship. I can see how you get it confused, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for clearing that one up. I appreciate it.
That's fine.
One thing here, though, is the Warmaul only being a 4/4 isn't the most attractive Blood-Sworn Mercenary target that I've ever seen, but on the other hand, is a 4/4 and the 2/2 with the 4/4 already on board, already just enough versus Demon Hunter.
Wait, I messed that up, didn't I? Wasn't Firebat 2014 world champion?
Yeah, I think you mean 2013.
Yeah, Artosis was the year before. Okay. All right. Clarify, that was not shade at Firebat in any way.
Look, if you
Firebat
hate
is very
Firebat, just
much a
say so.
legitimate world champion. Artosis is not.
Nope, confirmed. Saul just called Firebat trash and undeserving of a World Championship title. There's another line here of just going the Risky Skipper and Bomb Wrangler, but the problem with that is you're upset if you draw an Armor Smith, in my experience, after Risky Skipper, and I think if you can make a solid turn that doesn't involve using a Risky Skipper, then you probably should in this matchup.
Probably a slightly more difficult decision than people might give it credit there for. 2 armor or player 0/3 that might have little to no impact on the game for quite some time yet. I think with a Risky Skipper in hand, then having the egg in play there does have a lot of upside. Plays to a lot of draws, Blood Boil Brute, for example. That will make the Blood Boil Brute 1 cheaper on your Risky Skipper turn just by having that additional minion in play.
Just straight up Battle Rage. Just
Yep.
being an extra card there. Now, is Inner Rage on this egg if he really wants it, but with Grom in hand, does Bunnyhoppor just focus on just coasting now and maybe just hard plays a Bomb Wrangler and armors up?
I mean, he could skip a Bomb Wrangler this turn if he wanted to. I don't think it's the worst play. It doesn't seem like he's going to necessarily need a Risky Skipper to contest board. He is very all-in at that point. He's only 2 turns away from just straight up winning the game.
Just the Bomb Wrangler might be enough.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Because there's so many draws that Risky Skipper's good with. And the Bomb Wrangler, although, yeah, it gets you extra bombs, which does more damage, he needs only, literally 1 damage to hit the face before he plays this Grom. And also, as well, if in some universe he needs Inner Rage on something else, he can risky skip a Grom on 9.
Sure.
That's a very much a backup plan. Don't get me wrong, but it is another activator for Grom just for 10.
Fascinated. What's going to come up with here? Hard pass. Okay, option C that we didn't even consider. So he wants to wait, see a board get generated, use his Skipper and Bomb Wrangler to clear out some of the mess, and then use that to bridge his gap between now and turn 8. Alright. I can get down with that.
Yep, seems reasonable to me.
The fires of
A lot of cards drawn. No Altrius though, so there's no chance at really going nuts for damage for SilverName, as well as potentially clearing off this egg, but does have Metamorphosis as well. Just gonna give a quick check. SilverName is running 2 I-beams in his list as well, so he can heal out of range of this in some circumstances. The Corsair Cash though, that's a good draw.
Yeah, that made this game quite a lot simpler.
Yep.
Just draw the weapon, equip the weapon, hit the face. Job done.
So what would it have to be? Freeze I-beam this turn?
Freeze,
Survive.
I-beam. Yeah, sounds about right.
Like an I-beam.
Yeah, he also drew the second freeze, which I think completely locks him out. Because otherwise he could have gone Blazing Balmage Skull and hit both of those cards. I-beam in the middle, so it's 0. And then Frozen Shadow Weaver anywhere, so it's also 0. Having drawn it, he can't do that anymore. Also, he's not playing around Grom in a rage, let's be real. Like, that's just not what he's thinking about this turn.
Demons?
Yeah, honestly, I think if he drew I-beam, it's just a good play to freeze an I-beam, actually. This turn, you know what I mean?
Yes,
No,
yeah,
even
exactly.
specifically to beat Grom, it's just actually just a strong play for the game.
Yeah.
Just a happy coincidence it'll play exactly round what Bunnyhoppor could have killed him with.
Yeah.
Well, SilverName is just going to set up to do as much damage as possible. It seems like a reasonable plan for me. And already, you can see the way they can catch up on, damage, but again, the addition of Grom to all these warrior lists really does feel frustrating to play against, because sometimes you do just die. Like SilverName has done now, as Bunnyhoppor takes his win with the warrior, is almost expected now in Grandmasters. This warrior win rate continues to soar. SilverName still looking okay at 2-1, but Bunnyhoppor not out of the series quite yet.
No, as you mentioned, obligatory warrior win under the belt. He now has Rogue Demon Hunter and Priest Demon Hunter, which are both pretty evenly contested matchups. They fall kind of either side of the 50-50 barrier for me. Like Demon Hunter maybe slightly ahead against Rogue, and Demon Hunter maybe slightly behind against Priest. So SilverName still finds himself in a pretty clean position, but Bunnyhoppor by no means out of this series just yet.
Yep, him still want to grab a win there. Still has a chance with that Demon Hunter, but we are going to go to a quick break before we get into our next game between SilverName and Bunnyhoppor. Only be a couple of games left and one more series left for the European Grandmasters today, but we'll see you shortly. Into a quick break. We'll be right back.
My Hearthstone play is a product I need to sell.
Oh. It's gotta be catchy, right?
Huh. I actually have no clue what to say.
When people sub, I snap and say, "Welcome to the farm."
Welcome to the farm.
Yeah, they're part of the, because we're on the farm. Ball controls Animal Farm. Welcome to the farm when they sub.
I will just say TTTT. Everyone can be as good as me.
The play from somebody who has never misplayed.
It's good. Be French, be good.
Getting rank 1 with Yarla.
You can't outvalue me.
Unity, precision, perfection. Like that very familiar Hearthstone card. Also broken. Just like my play.
Come for the stay for the rope.
We are back, and it's still Series 3 of the day between SilverName and Bunnyhoppor. Bunnyhoppor just taking a win with that warrior. Felt like almost a given, showing how... You're laughing at me there.
Sorry. Day 32. It's still the same series between Bunnyhoppor and SilverName. Sorry.
There is still a priest as an option as a lock-in for the next game. SilverName, thankfully, maybe a Demon Hunter left, so he has only got that one to take a win with, a much-needed win for SilverName in Grandmasters. And Bunnyhoppor, on the other hand, does have his rogue or his priest to lock in. Bunnyhoppor has gone for his rogue, so being a nice guy gives us a bit of a break. And from the priest, and we'll see what happens here. And honestly, how do you feel with rogue versus demon hunter? Because I think it's still hotly discussed thing for the matchup.
It is. Sidekick list is really annoying. Much more annoying than I first gave it credit for. I think week 4, maybe it was, where I was saying that I still felt that rogue was like absolutely fine in this matchup, maybe 50%, maybe even slightly favored. But it was whatever the first week was, where maybe half the players had switched to the sidekick list, and I was not giving enough credit over to how impactful sidekick can be in the matchup to play around backstab and seal fate. Because if rogue can't kill the first couple of minions that come down, that is bad news bears for the rogue. Like, well and truly, they are taking too much damage early. They can't recover. They can't race. Because that's often what it comes down to: is kill a few minions with this kind of hand that Bunnyhoppor has right now, and then look to just land some kind of mid-game threat, and then race from that point onwards. Just try and stick something with a Titanic Lackey and start pushing damage. And it's very, very hard to do that if you're not able to kill the first couple of threats.
Yeah, but looking at Bunnyhoppor's opening hand here, Seal of Fate. Too much hanging around you.
Hey!
Seal, Fate, Backstab, and Ambush. Maybe Ambush not a keep, but still I think a pretty decent turn to play against Demon Hunter. It looks like it's shaped up to be an okay hand. Shadow Step probably going to get thrown. But I am interested to see how Bunnyhoppor reacts to this opening, because to me, it looks to do what you want to do versus Demon Hunter early on, which, as you just mentioned, is kill their stuff. Is that full keep?
Yep, that is a full keep. Yep, I like it. You seem to be the good cards. Shadow Step Keep opens up a lot of good top decks, with Evil Miscreant perhaps being super key in the matchup, because it enables you to swing the board very early. If you get good lackeys, that's a good Shadow Step target. Edwin, of course, is the nuts with this hand, if he can also find something to Shadow Step along with it.
I do wonder now, though, does the mana burn ever open up enough disruption for the early game? That SilverName can whip in enough damage here.
Well, it's going to have to, because it's in his hand as opposed to an actual playable card that he could be pressuring with right now.
There's test number 1. Backstab going to be used here, and pointing out push. Okay. This keeps Bunnyhoppor on level footing, really, with minions, because anything that SilverName's going to do, not everything he can do, but most things can proc this ambush, whereas this is probably just looking fantastic here for Bunnyhoppor. He's pretty happy with this outcome.
Well, that makes that coin a little bit sad last turn.
I think he's still overall okay. Equips the dagger. He's still potentially even on board with the secret. and then Seal Fate to work in the Lackey into the Lackey Miscreant the turn after. Although not perfect, or still very doable here for Bunnyhoppor.
Yeah, agreed. The curve is absolutely fine from here. Last time we were in this scenario, the rope did appear. I was going to say, last time we were in this scenario, I made a comment like, there is no way that Bunnyhoppor is actually considering X, and then he DM'd me and was like, no, I'm actually considering X. In that scenario, there was nothing to consider. He was just thinking about future turns.
I really want this dagger equipped.
Yeah.
It's like, yes. Yes, you do. Seal Fate.
What if my opponent generates a Harrison Jones?
Everything you don't want to see if you're a SilverName right now just answers, and now somehow this early in the game, Rogue is winning on board.
Yep. Counter-Strike Umberwing is a pretty clean answer, though, to the ambusher.
Now Bunnyhoppor does have a clear on board and a proc for the Evil Miscreant. Looks mighty fine to me.
Yep.
What do you think about Shadow Stepping? Not necessarily this Lackey, but Shadow Stepping a Lackey in this game so he can have an turn 6 Togwaggle play? So just speed up that either wand or whatever he chooses to go for.
Yeah, I like it. I was looking at the same thing, and I think actually it could very well be this Lackey because it creates a decent swing on the turn where you're going to play the Heist Baron Togwaggle. Because there's a good chance you actually get to hit a very relevant target with it because most of the minions die to a Kobold Lackey. So I think it's worth thinking about for sure.
Maybe Faceless as an alternative becomes good enough because it generates a board, but I will say, yep.
I like this one.
Choice.
Yep.
Yeah, I just like it overall because against Demon Hunter, you don't normally have the slow, okay, turn 7, Lackey Togwaggle, pass. You know, like, you don't really get that, right? So if you can do that any quicker, so you can just get that wand out quicker versus Demon Hunter, you're looking pretty good, actually. It's just a good use of Shadow Step. Ooh. Good. Could opt to go for a wider board and maybe see what's in this Dragon Lackey. Drop down the Hanar maybe to sort of feint a threat to SilverName. Even if Bunnyhoppor's not really bothered about whether it lives or dies.
So where does the magic come from? On wings of evil.
Okay.
Nothing playable this turn.
No, it's a big deal. There's only a couple that are, though, in this scenario. So can't be too sad about it.
Bunnyhoppor just going to use this Hanar as a taunt.
Choose Sulu.
Don't hate it.
But when you think about it, he's achieved a bit more this turn than he would if he just played the shield. And Hanar's only got 1 less health than Shield of Galakron. But I think it's just as big a threat. Because SilverName won't go, ah, it's fine, leave your Hanar up, right? He's going to kill it if he can.
Sure.
I actually think it's a pretty good play. Bunnyhoppor's pretty good at this game.
Yeah, I like it. It's been one of my big drums that I've been banging for several weeks is how, a lot of people just don't use this thing as a 1/5 when it's pretty useful as a 1/5 in a lot of scenarios. I'll take half a Warmaul Challenger for a third of the cost in a lot of scenarios. Wait, a third of the what am I talking about? That was not maths. I don't know what I just said, but it was not accurate in any way. Mana burn timing very important for SilverName because I think he got the Shadow Step Lackey signal from SilverName.
Yeah, not the highest level read in the world, is it, to assume this is going to come? Although the problem here is SilverName's just getting beaten up regardless of whether there's a Tog next turn or not.
Yep.
Because there's still, as you mentioned, the power of Cobalt Blackie against Demon Hunter is, well, just a 2-2 and Cobalt Blackie just kill off the Warglaive for a start. Now this backstab, why not? Not that he has to play the Lackey this turn, of course. I'm just saying, like, from what SilverName knows is in hand, he's still behind.
Wait, this is sick! Trade into the 2-2.
Spell
and
damage,
then backstab the 6-4. The plays! Insane.
They will never catch me.
SilverName can get to this skull, actually. I think he might have to. He has
Yeah.
enough health to let Bunnyhoppor hit him. It sucks, but I think he needs something pretty big out of this Skull of Gul'dan because, frankly, he's just losing a lot.
Yep. The alternative is Frozen Shadow Weaver Battle Mage, and he's still behind on board if he does that, so what's the point? You might as well just go for the skull.
Ooh. And lock out the Tog again. Ooh, but does he really want to with Altreus? I think you hold it. Oh.
I think it's probably more punishing if he does it this way around, right?
I don't know, Sol. Isn't Altreus just lethal?
Not quite. Actually, I mean, that card may have been necessary to be able to deal 6 to the Twilight Drake, the mana burn. Of course, you will clear, you know, Togwaggle wouldn't be the largest minion in play because the Twilight Drake would be there, so it's not that relevant in that regard. So maybe holding on to it was arguable, but I think I still like the way he did it.
He's doing a great job at keeping this Cobalt Lackey in his opponent's hand, though, isn't he, SilverName?
Yep.
You never play in the zero-cost Lackey. This could be a swing that's needed, though, from SilverName. If he was ever going to get a set of cards, he's not far away from getting the right set.
Right. He wants, like, cheap minion off the top next turn. So obviously the power of like playing Altruis and clearing your opponent's board as you play minions is like way more swingy than you playing spells alongside it. Is that too expensive? 1, 4, 5, 8. No, that's perfect, right?
Yeah, he even gets to swing with second
1, 4, 7, 8. Yeah, that's perfect. Nice.
Also, it means that in a roundabout way, because the Altruis has to die, the Cobalt Lackey has to kill it, if that's what Bunnyhoppor goes for. Which then means all the other cards, mainly the Overseer, is safe.
He froze face, killed the minion. Is that the right way around to do this? I guess Faceless Corruptor is a card.
Is he scared of Galakron?
Galakron?
Is Galakron on 4 yet?
No, it's on 2.
Oh, okay. No. Hopefully it's... Poor Galakron was on there for Bunnyhoppor. And Bunny having to deviate away. Once again from this Togwaggle.
Yeah, he can't play it and pay it off in the same
Just
turn,
die,
so it would just be kind of dead on board almost at that point, if not outright.
And honestly, small sample size, but these mana burns have done work this game.
Well, in the interest of balance, the mana burn, the first mana burn at least, did a good job of allowing SilverName to catch up because he was behind because he had a mana burn in his opening hand.
Okay.
I think that's a fairer way of putting it. The second one was pretty good.
What you're saying is you should only run one and make it the second one.
Yes. Ooh, good card. Extremely good card.
Are you surprised it wasn't a triple trade? I guess no. This sets up exactly, yeah.
What do you mean?
Well, purely because he knows Tog's in hand, right? So
Yeah.
Tog and Wand is going to happen this turn 9 times out of 10. And if there's ever something you lose to at this point, it's Tog and Wand.
Yeah. I mean, it has to. It's exactly Galakron. That's the only thing that punishes you, right? So Galakron in hand, or if it's not in hand, you're giving your opponent a 1 in 5 to hit the Galakron.
Yeah, I mean, the fact
seems fine.
The second when I started the sentence, I didn't realize he puts him to exactly 5, honestly. So, yeah. That Galakron. I believe that is Bunnyhoppor quite dead. Bunnyhoppor's just thinking, all that time in the priest mirror. Straight out the window.
Can't even look.
Hey, well, SilverName needs this win. Look at the 0-3 next to his name. That's not the way round you want those numbers.
No.
I give up.
There's the concede. SilverName. There we go. You can breathe happy now as he gets the victory over Bunnyhoppor and puts a win on the board. The story of the day. SilverName looks exhausted, but your job has been done for today. Don't worry, friend. And yeah, he takes the win. That's huge. So now we have Zim, Boston, and SilverName all taking wins today. And they were needed. Otherwise, they were all in precarious positions going forward in Grandmasters. So not only has it made them not safe by any means, but a little bit better off, it's just brought everyone else closer. So maybe we do get a repeat of maybe Europe, where we just see everything crushed together, and it's going to come down to the last weekend, maybe even the last day. So see who ends up where.
Yeah, I mean, I said it right at the top of the broadcast, which, you know, admittedly it sounds like it was in January right now, as to how deep we are. But
2018.
Yeah, exactly. A bad week for Viper and Yala and Psycho and the players who are towards the top of Division B and Division A, respectively. And a good week for the SilverNames, Hunter Aces, Zims, and Bostons that are hanging out at the bottom. You can just compress the whole thing so much that it's literally anyone's game after that point. And so far, that's exactly what's happening. Boston, Zim, SilverName, all picking up wins. We do have Ball Control coming up now in our last series, who is at a 2-1 record himself. Felkane's currently at 1-2. So the way today has been going is this is a win for Felkane, and then that compresses that league table even further.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, we do have Ball Control. We do see the bans coming in now. We're